Okay, we're picking up now and looking at the test 2 material. Had a lot of stuff on it, some easier than others. Functions, function notation, domain and range, included difference quotients, combinations and composition, and also quadratic functions. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at several of these. Okay, I thought I'd go ahead and look at number 12 because it gets at the concept of a function. So this one lists not an equation of any type, doesn't give you a graph, it just gives you a set of ordered pairs for your relation, and you're trying to decide, does this satisfy the definition of a function? So you're thinking about function, okay? And you should ask yourself, does each x have just one y? That's kind of what you're looking for. So you look at those x's and see how they're all different. So that means each x has its own y. It doesn't matter that 0 has -1 for y and that -1 has -1 for y. Each x only goes to one value. So function, yes, okay? And then remember domain. Domain should be associated with x's. The range would be what the y's are. And they give those to you explicitly. But it's not a range. It's not interval notation. It's the number 9, 0, 3, and -1. And for the range, it's the y's, and you don't have a continuous function. You have individual ordered pairs. So 6, -1, and 3, and you don't need to list the -1 again. All right, so yes, it's a function, okay? But it does have this -1 repeated, and sometimes people mistakenly say it's not a function because of that. All right, I think you can figure out number 13. I do want to look at 14 and 15 because they're the basic domain questions that we want to be sure you know how to do. Okay, so what if you were given that function, or what if you had this function? Okay, these are the two basic domain issues that you could have. Okay, and so like on this one, the x plus 5 under here better be bigger than or equal to 0. So if I couldn't just see by looking at it that it would be from -5 on up, I would just solve this inequality. And it tells me that. And then it asks you on this, you're supposed to do interval notation. So that'd be from -5 to +infinity. Okay. So numbers like -4, -3, -2 work, but if you went to -6, it would not. Now the issue here is different. This time you have the division by 0 problem. So this one, you want that to not be negative, okay? This one, you want this to not be 0. So you find out, well, what causes it to be 0? And that would be -5. So the domain is basically everything but that. And the way you write that in interval notation is a little awkward. It's basically from -infinity to infinity, just leave out the -5. So your final answer on 14 would be that. On 15, it would look like this. Okay. All right, so that's domain. That's kind of an important idea. I kind of harp on that quite a bit. You'll probably be able to figure out the increasing and decreasing on your own. Function notation you could do from a graph or from an equation. Why don't we do number 20 for the next one we do together? I'm just working a few selected problems from the review for the final. Yours will be slightly different, but similar issues. So here we have a piecewise function. That means one rule doesn't describe the entire thing. You use the top rule when you're less than or equal to -1. Use the bottom rule when you're bigger than -1, okay? And so if I ask you to do f of -3 like I did here, you actually start by thinking about which of these conditions does it fit. And since -3 is less than or equal to -1, that just means we're going to use the top rule. And our only answer to this question is -6. Okay. All right. Well, let's do another piecewise. Let's go do the tax one, because remember we did a project on taxes. Okay. So on the tax one, you were asked to find the tax of a certain amount of income. Okay. So now on mine, it would fall into this row. I'm not going to write out the whole thing, but I'm just going to write out what's in each column of the row. So this is kind of what the row looks like that I should use, because 31,800 would fall between those two. Okay. So what it says is my tax is this plus 15%. And then it says of, and this is the tricky part, the amount over 8,500. Okay. All right, so this is what I'm going to use to calculate my tax. So the tax on 31,800 is going to equal 850 plus 15% of, that means times the amount over 8,500. Well, my income was 31,800. I want to see how much money I earned above that. So I'm going to subtract the 8,500. Kind of remember how we did that using the tax guide. So we're going to take the 31,800, take away 8,500, and that gives us 23,300 right here. So we do 850 plus 15%, 0.15 times 23,300. Okay, so that's going to turn out to be 4,345. And so the amount of tax you would owe would be $4,345, okay, according to that table. All right, this would be a good stopping point